warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. On the show tonight, we will tell you how Russia and Ukraine are establishing their own terms for a potential peace deal. As the fighting on ground intensifies, with Russia questioning Zelensky's legitimacy and Ukraine condemning Russia's buffer zone announcement. What lies ahead in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war? We'll tell you about that on the show tonight. From Bangladesh, we will tell you how the country is in the grip of a fresh political turmoil, with the core leadership failing and uncertainty mounting every minute. Is the time up for Yunus? Also on the show, the Trump administration has sent a letter to Harvard putting a ban on the university's ability to enroll foreign students. How will this affect global students at Harvard, and what's next for the Indian students as well? All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. Russia and Ukraine are establishing their own terms for a potential peace deal. As the fighting on the ground intensifies, new statements from Moscow, sharp divisions in Washington, and persisting silence from US President Donald Trump. All these are now contributing to the uncertainty surrounding any peace agreement. Russia says it swapped prisoners of war with Ukraine today, in an exchange that was agreed on at talks in Istanbul last week. US President Donald Trump has even raised the possibility of bigger things in the offing. But what is he talking about? Just yesterday, Putin announced the creation of a security buffer zone along the border with Ukraine.
As I said earlier, the decision to create a necessary buffer security zone along borders with Ukraine had been already made. Our armed forces are accomplishing this task now. Enemy firing points are being suppressed. The work is proceeding.
Well, the timing is key. This announcement comes just after Putin visited the frontline Kursk region, and after he held a high-stakes phone call, a 2-hour phone call with US President Donald Trump. On paper, that call focused on the future of peace in Ukraine. But on the ground, the signals were starkly different. Putin says Russia is now ready to begin restoration work, which includes demining and rebuilding war-scarred border towns in Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk. Remember, Russia claimed to have regained full control of the Kursk region in late April. That's after months of fierce combat against Ukrainian forces, and also being supported by North Korean troops sent under a mutual defense pact between Russia and North Korea. This week, Putin visited troops in the region for the first time since that reclamation. While details on the buffer zone are little, Putin has floated this idea before. Now, it signals that for the Kremlin, this may be the only way to secure the border from more Ukrainian strikes. In recent months, Ukraine has intensified cross-border attacks, including strikes in Belgorod and other Russian border towns. On the diplomatic front, meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed that there would be a second round of talks with Ukraine. That's when Moscow would hand a memorandum to the Ukrainian side. But once again, Moscow questioned the legitimacy of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. That's in signing a peace deal. In saying so, the Russian foreign minister repeated Moscow's claim that Zelensky was not a legitimate leader of Ukraine and has suggested new elections before a potential future peace agreement is signed. Earlier, Putin thanked Trump for supporting a renewed push for peace talks, which for the first time since 2022 resumed last week in Turkey. But despite the optimism from Kremlin, a Wall Street Journal report claims that Trump told European leaders that he believes that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has no intention of ending the war, a claim which Moscow has strongly denied. Kyiv too is not buying it. Ukraine's foreign ministry condemned the buffer zone announcement as aggressive and a direct barrier to peace. They said that any buffer zone should be created inside Russia and not Ukraine. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the bloodshed continues. On Thursday, 12 civilians, including 2 children, were reportedly injured in a Ukrainian strike on the Russian town of Lvov. On Friday, Russia claimed to have captured fresh territory in Donetsk, destroying multiple Ukrainian military targets, including US-supplied Patriot air defense systems. Now, between Tuesday night and Thursday morning, Moscow says it shot down nearly 500 Ukrainian drones, 120 in the Kursk region alone. Ukraine too claims to have beaten back multiple Russian offensives and also struck military industrial sites in Moscow and Tula with drones. So as Putin moves to fortify his hold on retaken regions and floats just how deep this buffer zone should go, we can't help but wonder, is this a path to peace or a new phase of the war? Military experts say Putin's moves may be designed to pressure Kyiv or perhaps test the West's resolve. Either way, what we know is this: the fight is far from over. Well, the Russia-Ukraine war is defined by innovation and escalation. The skies are no longer silent. Machines now breathe fire. In a bold escalation of drone warfare, Ukraine has unleashed its latest battlefield terror, the Krampus flamethrower drone. It does not drop bombs. It does not fire bullets. It spews fire, real raging fire. Our next report telling you more.
Ukraine has now unveiled a new weapon. Krampus is a remote-controlled inferno designed to scorch enemy positions, trenches and strongholds. The remotely controlled robot is capable of spraying flames with pinpoint accuracy. It brings medieval fear into modern combat. Its very name, drawn from the mythical punisher of the wicked, is no accident. Krampus isn't just a drone, it's a message of intent from Kyiv. This is not the first drone Ukraine has roped in. Earlier, Kyiv used Dragon Drone, a fire-spitting drone that torched Russian trenches in night raids. Footage showed flames raining from the sky, forcing enemy soldiers to flee like shadows in a furnace. Unlike conventional explosives, a flame can flush out, disorient and destroy with terrifying efficiency. Trench warfare meets a firestorm. But the flames of war are not one-sided. Russia has long relied on its own arsenal of terror weapons. Thermobaric munitions, sometimes called vacuum bombs, create immense pressure waves and scorching heat, devastating everything within their blast radius. Russian troops have wielded flamethrowers and thermobaric rockets to horrifying effect, flattening buildings and incinerating defensive positions from Mariupol to Bakhmut. These weapons are designed not just to kill, but to break the will of anyone who stands against them. As the war evolves, so does the technology. Drones now act as saboteurs, bombers, assassins, and now flamethrowers. War is no longer about steel and lead. It's about heat, flame, and fear from above. Bureau Report, WION The World is One.
Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir Risane Imtiyaz Military
for his admirable leadership, unflinching courage, and outstanding service.
Asim Munir is only the second person in the country's history to hold the title of Field Marshal. But within hours of him being conferred this rank, Pakistan is split wide open on this elevation. Imran Khan, leader of the largest party in Pakistan Parliament, has mocked the elevation, and a chief minister skipped Munir's function altogether. Sensing the simmering tension, Munir and his men have reportedly started working overtime. But Pakistan is at odds over this elevation that came directly from the Pakistan government, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's administration signing off on this promotion. Munir will continue to lead Pakistan's army until his extended retirement in 2027, courtesy a law passed in November last year that extended service terms of top Pakistani military brass from 3 years to 5. Now, by tradition, a field marshal in Pakistan remains on the military's active list for life. He may hold no formal post after retirement, but he is entitled to wear his uniform, brandish a distinctive field marshal's baton, and receive salutes that break from standard military protocol. But not everyone saluted this moment. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's chief minister did not attend the ceremony where Asim Munir was officially elevated to the rank of field marshal. His office clarified that he was tied up in a PTI meeting focused on former Prime Minister Imran Khan's release. That explanation did not silence speculation, especially since all three other chief ministers attended the ceremony. Meanwhile, from behind bars, former Prime Minister of Pakistan Imran Khan, in a social media post on X, mocked Munir's promotion, stating that given the lawlessness Pakistan lives under, wouldn't king have been a more accurate title for Munir, and called Pakistan a jungle where only one ruler reigns. Imran Khan has been in jail since August 2023. Khan has denied reports of any backdoor deal with the military and has invited the military to open dialogue, but only if they're serious about Pakistan's interests and future. A PTI party leader, Gohar Ali Khan, though, told a local Pakistani news channel that Allah has given the honor to Munir and also entailed him with the responsibility, prompting Imran Khan's sister, Alima Khan, to publicly dismiss Gohar Khan's authority to represent PTI after that statement he made backing Munir, announcing the party's total dissociation with Gohar's statement on Munir's elevation to the rank of Field Marshal. Now, all these developments comes just days after Munir was seen standing next to Salman Iqbal during a Pakistan Super League cricket match. Now, Iqbal is the owner of PSL team, Karachi Kings, and the founder of Array News Network in Pakistan. Iqbal is known to be a vocal supporter and loyalist of Imran Khan. It's also important to keep in mind the electoral context here. In the 2024 elections, PTI contestants, stripped of their party status by court's rulings, ran as independents. Despite winning the largest number of directly elected seats, they were still short of a majority. Experts allege that the election was engineered to marginalize PTI and push military-friendly figures to the forefront. And while General Munir's promotion is being shown as a symbol of triumph, it is far from the truth. Officially, he is credited with leading Pakistan in its confrontation with India. One, the Islamabad claims ended in a tactical victory, but facts and satellite-backed evidence clearly suggest otherwise. India destroyed 9 terror hubs deep inside Pakistan. India struck again, retaliating to Pakistan's failed strikes. This time, 11 Pakistani air bases suffered major damage. Yet, despite this devastation, Pakistan's leadership declared success following a ceasefire, a declaration that India has repeatedly debunked with visual and intelligence-based evidence at multiple global platforms. So, Pakistan may have promoted an army general to the country's highest military rank, but its democracy, accountability, and truth all lie in shambles. And in these matters, there's no baton, only the hard scrutiny of its citizens. Bangladesh is in the grip of fresh political turmoil, with the core leadership failing and uncertainty mounting every minute. On the one hand, the Bangladesh Army Chief has called for fresh elections to be concluded by December this year. On the other, Bangladesh de facto Prime Minister Muhammad Yunus has threatened to call it quits unless political parties agree on citizen reforms. The country in the throes of an intense power struggle that could potentially trigger fresh demonstrations, risking a replay of scenes from last year. That's when the Sheikh Hasina government was overthrown in August. This brings us to a key question. Is Yunus's time in Bangladesh power politics up? Let's go through what has actually happened one by one. First, in a strong message, Bangladesh Army Chief General Wakiruzzaman has said Bangladesh is in urgent need of fresh elections. He's even set a target, the end of this year or even earlier. His comments come at a time when the interim government has been delaying announcing election dates in the country by repeatedly raising the need for electoral reforms that it says should be implemented at the earliest. The Army Chief has made it crystal clear that his stance on elections remains unchanged, stating it is the right of an elected government alone to determine the country's future course. Meanwhile, dissent against Yunus is also intensifying, with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or BNP holding large-scale demonstrations and critics accusing him of trying to cling to power using student bodies and the support of hardline Islamist groups. Even though Yunus has previously remarked that elections will be held by June 2026, there's perhaps growing impatience in political quarters, with many even demanding his immediate resignation from his post. The question is, will Yunus yield? Well, it's unclear at this point of time. In politics, things are always shifting, and there's always more than what meets the eye. Amid the rumors of Yunus threatening to tender his resignation, a cabinet member and special advisor to the Nobel laureate has said he needs to remain in office as interim leader to ensure a peaceful transition of power. A lot has happened since Hasina's exit, with the Yunus-led government promising major reforms in various sectors, but not much has been delivered, unfortunately, and that's owing to growing disagreements in the government machinery. Needless to say, all this puts Yunus and his administration in a tight spot. A party that emerged on top after last year's student uprisings faces a serious risk of elimination at this point. What perhaps can save it, if you may wonder and ask? Another student uprising, committed to reform and a change of system first, rather than just a change in government. Reports suggest students and Islamists plan to demonstrate in capital Dhaka in what they are calling a march for Yunus, demanding that Yunus should be kept in power for the next 5 years at least. This is in a bid to keep up an agitation against the army, who the demonstrators are up in arms against, alleging that it is trying to fragment the country. With the Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League banned from political activities, the BNP, the only other major party in Bangladesh, stands in the way of the Yunus government staying in power. What happens next in Bangladesh? Well, that is anybody's guess. And WION earlier spoke to Ambassador Humayun Kabir, former Foreign Secretary to Bangladesh, to make sense of the issue. We asked him how he looks at the fresh push for elections in Bangladesh, and here's what he had to say on that.
Election is a national issue and it should be decided by the government. So what army chief has suggested is just kind of suggestion or his expectation. I think at the end of the day, it would be organized by the government in consultation or in an understanding with the major political stakeholders. So that is the kind of arrangement. And obviously, people have a high expectation for elections because for the last 15 years, 16 years, people didn't have the opportunity to cast their vote. So there is a kind of, you can say, intrinsic demand and expectation from all sectors of people.
We also asked him what happens if the polls in Bangladesh should get delayed, as the Yunus government prioritizes reforms at this point of time.
Elections would not only solve the problem, because the kind of problems that Bangladesh has now is a structural problem. Elections were there. I mean, since our independence in 1971, we had election in 73, and subsequently we had number of elections. We want elections so that a sustainable democratic structure can continue.
The sun may give life, but in China's hands, it might also hold the power to cripple nations. What was once celebrated as clean energy is now a potential tool of coercion. From Washington to Brussels and now Tokyo, alarm bells are ringing louder than ever. Has China turned solar panels into strategic weapons? Reports of embedded kill switches in solar farm infrastructure across the US have triggered urgent reviews of energy security. These are not just technical glitches, they are backdoors allegedly capable of remotely disabling solar energy at will. And the common thread? Most of these panels and inverters were manufactured in China. The latest to raise the red flag is Japan, where officials are now scrutinizing their own solar imports. Tokyo has now ordered a formal probe. The components were found in power inverters, devices that connect solar panels and wind turbines to electricity grids, and they allow remote access for updates. So according to experts, some of the equipment in the solar panels have a communication mechanism. This was a hidden feature unknown to the operator altogether. Reports say that this feature potentially allows remote circumvention of security firewalls. So clearly, sitting thousands of kilometers away, Beijing can switch off, hamper or cripple power systems at its own will. A dangerous proposition. Over the past 9 months, undocumented communication devices, including cellular radios, have also been found in some batteries from multiple Chinese suppliers. Nations are now waking up to this very uncomfortable reality. The clean energy transitions are built on Chinese technology. According to multiple investigations, important components in solar farms across Europe and the US may be vulnerable to remote interference. If true, this is just not about losing power, it's about national security. Solar farms power military bases, hospitals, data centers, and essential infrastructure. A well-timed blackout could paralyze a country without a single missile being fired. Energy is the new frontline, and China is clearly far ahead in this race, and that too not just in manufacturing it, but in control as well. As countries scramble to decouple from Chinese tech dependence, the green dream is now turning into a geopolitical nightmare. The message is clear. Solar is not just about sunshine anymore. It's about sovereignty. Let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. As the US and Iran hold the fifth round of nuclear negotiations in Rome, Iran has now issued a major warning stating that it may relocate its nuclear materials to undisclosed locations. Also on the show, Bangladesh's Jamaat-e-Islami, a radical Islamist group, has proposed the creation of an independent Rohingya state. We will also tell you how the United States is recalibrating its military deployment in East Asia. In a major escalation of its fight with one of America's most prestigious academic institutions, the Trump administration has struck a heavy blow against Harvard University. The Trump administration has now barred Harvard University from enrolling foreign students. Not just that, it is also now asking foreign students already there to either transfer to other schools or lose their legal status. In a letter to Harvard, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem wrote that effective immediately, Harvard University student and exchange visitor program certification is revoked. Foreign students are permitted to study in the US under this system, the SEVI system. Noem accused Harvard of fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party. The move comes after Harvard refused to provide information that Noem demanded about some foreign student visa holders at Harvard. In the next few minutes, we will tell you what lies ahead for the foreign students at Harvard and how America's oldest university is now clocked in uncertainty as the future of its global students hangs in the balance. The decision announced by the US Department of Homeland Security directly puts at risk the future of nearly 6,800 international students who are currently enrolled at Harvard. Around 27% of current Harvard students are from outside the US, and the situation is precarious and shrouded in uncertainty for them. We say that because, as of now, those who have completed their degrees this term will be allowed to graduate, but for the vast majority enrolled in degree programs, the government has issued an ultimatum: transfer to another SEVP certified institution or lose legal status in the US. According to the letter sent by Noem, existing foreign students will have to transfer to other colleges in order to maintain the F1 or J1 visa status.
The more optimistic friends of mine will see the midterm elections as a chance for change. As international students, we hope to have a relatively open and accommodating academic and political environment in the United States.
Mixture of like shock then to kind of just, devastation, like frustration and then uncertainty, anxiety, it's a combination of all of those feelings, I would say, among students in the community right now.
What about Indian students? According to Harvard's records, between 500 and 800 Indian students are enrolled each year across various schools and departments at Harvard. And as of now, the current batch, there are 788 Indian students studying at Harvard, mostly in graduate level programs. Many Indians are also enrolled in long-term or multi-year graduate programs. However, all this is turning out to be a nightmare for foreign students, because shifting to another college, another university at this point in the academic calendar assures little more than logistical and academic misery. Students will first need to scramble to find schools willing to accept them at this point of time, and then secure new I-20 forms. That's the certificate of eligibility for non-immigrant student status. The Ivy League can still reverse the government's ban and enroll foreign students. It has set out 6 conditions and 72 hours. The Trump administration has said that Harvard can regain its SEVP certification, which is a requirement for schools in the US to be able to enroll non-immigrant students. That is only if Harvard is successful in meeting our 6 conditions and submitting the requested information within a span of 72 hours. So what are these conditions and what is the information that they need to submit? Number 1, all records including electronic and audiovisual materials related to illegal activity on or off campus involving non-immigrant students over the past 5 years. Then, all records regarding dangerous or violent activity by non-immigrant students on or off campus. All records pertaining to threats made by non-immigrant students towards other students or university personnel. Any documentation of incidents in which non-immigrant students may have deprived others of their rights. All disciplinary records of non-immigrant students enrolled at Harvard in the last 5 years. And lastly, any audio or video footage of any kind of demonstration activity involving non-immigrant students on campus in the past 5 years. So these are a list of 6 demands, conditions that the Homeland Security has from Harvard. As of now, Harvard has not indicated whether it would comply with the Department of Homeland Security's demands. The university has called the order unlawful and said it was working to support the affected students. Heart-wrenching scenes out of Gaza today. Palestinian families continue to bury their dead as Israeli strikes intensify. Aid remains painfully scarce, and the global community is beginning to speak out against Israeli aggression, specifically Netanyahu's aggression. In Gaza's Khan Yunis, families mourned in hospital as they carried the bodies of loved ones, some just children killed in Israeli strikes.
What is his fault? He was 12 years old. What is his fault? What did he do to them? How did he hurt them? A child, defenseless, sitting in his tent. What is his fault? A missile? A drone missile? He did not do anything. There was nothing on him. An innocent child, deprived of his childhood. God is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of affairs.
Scenes of funerals and prayers were interrupted by wails and people crying. Others mourn kin who died seeking food. According to Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, at least 29 children and elderly people have reportedly died in recent days from starvation-related issues. The Palestinian health minister has warned that thousands more are at risk as limited aid begins trickling into the bombarded territory.
There is no food, there is no drink. Why is that? They sent us drops, crumbs of flour, not enough for 1% of the need of these afflicted people who want to eat. This one wanted to eat.
On Thursday, wheat and some food supplies trickled in, but far from enough to meet the needs of Gaza's 2.3 million people, many of whom are on the brink of famine. While Israel claims aid is entering Gaza, many say it's far too little.
If it weren't for these voluntary kitchens that give us some food 2 or 3 days a week, we wouldn't have anything to eat. Earlier, we could go to the market to buy some vegetables and other things. But now, there's nothing in the market. Even if there is, the price would be ridiculous.
The German government has sharply criticized the scale of aid allowed in Gaza. And European leaders among Israel's biggest allies have started criticizing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, even threatening sanctions on Israel. But Bibi has hit back, accusing leaders of France, UK and Canada of emboldening Hamas.
How this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. You're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history. Now, these leaders may think that they're advancing peace. They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting forever.
France has rebuked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's accusation that President Macron was encouraging murderers.
This morning, Benjamin Netanyahu said that President Macron is encouraging the murderers. What is his reaction this morning?
His reaction is very firm. Of course, we do not accept these accusations. Obviously, what happened in Washington was an anti-Semitic act, and we do not accept that either. We do not confuse the Israeli people with the policies being pursued today by Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, aid has started coming into Gaza, and the growing international backlash just underscores the mounting pressure on Israel. But for families in Gaza, the suffering just goes on and on, with no end in sight. The US and Iran have just finished the 5th round of negotiations in Rome over the nuclear deal. With the key details of this meeting still trickling in, Oman, which is mediating the talks, said that the meeting concluded with some but not conclusive progress, adding that the remaining issues may be addressed in the coming days without dwelling into the specifics. But prior to this crucial meeting, though, Tehran issued a stark warning, making it very clear, abundantly clear, that it may relocate its nuclear material to undisclosed locations if it feels its assets are under threat, specifically from Israel. In a formal letter addressed to the United Nations Secretary General and the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Abbas Araghchi, who is Iran's chief negotiator in the ongoing talks and also its foreign minister, outlined what Tehran describes as protective measures against external threats. He said that if Israel continues threats of military action, Iran will have no choice but to implement special steps to safeguard its nuclear infrastructure. The IAEA is currently able to both access and monitor Iran's stockpiles of enriched uranium, and these materials are stored at known sites in Iran and remain under international surveillance and watch. However, if Iran moves these materials to secret, undisclosed locations, it would severely limit any kind of global monitoring. The timing of this message is extremely important. Recent reports from US media outlets claim that Israel is actively preparing for a potential military strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. These plans are reportedly contingent on the collapse of the nuclear talks between the US and Iran. In his letter, the Iranian foreign minister made it clear that Iran would take all required measures to protect its nuclear sites and warned that it would only inform the IAEA after such steps were in place. Ahead of the recently concluded fifth round of talks between US and Iran, Araghchi reaffirmed Iran's position, stating that while more inspections might be negotiable, a ban on uranium enrichment is not. Take a listen.
As they, American officials, have expressed in their interviews that they do not believe that any enrichment can continue in Iran, and they think that we should cease all enrichment activities. If that is their goal, there will be no deal. If they want to take away the right of the Iranian people to use nuclear energy peacefully, we will not have an agreement at all.
Where reports say that Israel's strategic affairs minister and the Mossad chief are scheduled to meet US negotiators in Rome on the sidelines of the talks. Araghchi also said Tehran is willing to explore the creation of a regional uranium enrichment chamber. However, he clarified that such a proposal cannot replace Iran's sovereign right to enrichment on its own soil. The idea, he said, could complement enrichment but not substitute for it.
The idea of forming a consortium and forming a partnership with other countries is not bad in principle, but it cannot replace enrichment on Iranian soil unless other solutions emerge that allow enrichment to continue on Iranian soil.
Just before departing for Rome, Araghchi outlined Iran's red lines in a post on social media platform X. He stated that figuring out the path to a nuclear deal is, and I'm quoting here, not rocket science, making it very clear that zero nuclear weapons means there is a deal, while zero enrichment means the opposite. Under the terms of now defunct 2015 nuclear deal, Iran had agreed to limit enrichment to 3.67% purity. The IAEA confirmed in February this year that Iran has amassed over 270 kilograms of uranium enriched up to 60%, and close to 90% is needed for weapons-grade material. That figure marks a 92-kilogram increase since the agency's previous report. Iran's warning letter underscores that unless its security concerns are addressed, transparency may end, and international oversight could become a thing of the past, making the latest round of nuclear talks even more significant, not just for the US at this point of time or for Iran, but these talks are extremely important for the whole of West Asia. In a show of NATO solidarity and strategic readiness, 5 Czech Air Force fighter jets have been deployed to Iceland, and that's for a key policing mission. Iceland, which has no air force of its own, relies on allied nations to guard its skies, and the deployment comes amid concerns over potential Russian long-range aviation activity in the North Atlantic. Take a look.
Russian activities can reach the North Atlantic, And that is the reason why Iceland, which does not have an air force, asked the alliance for cover. Because I believe that if this readiness were not there, or the airspace surveillance, it would create a certain space that interested states could use other than for peaceful purposes.
Bangladesh's Jamaat-e-Islami, a radical Islamist group, has proposed the creation of an independent Rohingya state in a meeting with Chinese Communist Party or CCP representatives in Dhaka. This comes at a time when there has been a surge of Rohingya refugees into Bangladesh as ethnic armed organizations seize power along Myanmar's international borders. This applies especially to the Arakan army operating in Rakhine state of Myanmar. Well, according to a Jamaat leader, this is apparently a bid to make arrangements for the dignified and safe return of the Rohingyas who had come to Bangladesh and establish a safe zone for them. The foreign advisor of Bangladesh's interim government has warned that Bangladesh has been dealing with the Rohingya crisis for a very long time, and a prolonged one could only pose an escalating threat to both Bangladesh and its regional stability. He also said this warrants stronger international action for a durable and lasting solution. As for India, this carries significant geopolitical implications, especially with China's role in the mix and its proximity to Myanmar. Now, since 2017, 1 million Rohingyas have fled to Bangladesh from Myanmar's conflict-ridden Rakhine state. And today, Bangladesh hosts more than 1.3 million Rohingyas in camps at Cox's Bazar. Over the past few years, more and more Rohingyas Muslims have trickled into Bangladesh to escape violence perpetrated by the Myanmar's rebel group, the Arakan Army, which continues to take over areas along the border. Now the Arakan Army seeks greater autonomy for the Rakhine people in Rakhine state and aims to restore sovereignty of the Arakanese people. But how does it concern India exactly? In the past, the Jamaat-e-Islami has often taken an anti-India stance in Bangladesh. While the interim government in Bangladesh has invited China to expand its deployment in the region, India has primarily focused on northern Bangladesh and the strategic Siliguri corridor or Chicken's Neck. But now, with China entering the ring, directly that too, Myanmar, which shares a border with southern Bangladesh, could be a viable option for India. And that's in helping secure its northeastern front as well as providing another route into the region. As it stands now, despite having regional interests, China is unlikely to support an independent Rohingya state, and that's due to the potential instability it could bring. This could also present itself as an opportunity to India to engage with political stakeholders to further its security and economic interests. What lies ahead? We'll have to track it closely. Imagine seeing the invisible. Well, now it looks like a possibility. Chinese scientists claim to have manufactured a kind of contact lenses that perhaps allows humans to perceive infrared light, a spectrum that is usually reserved for snakes, bats and sci-fi. And unlike night vision goggles, these lenses perhaps need no battery. According to reports, neuroscientists at the University of Science and Technology of China are positive that with the success of these lenses, they have perhaps paved the way for a range of contact lenses, glasses, and other wearable devices that give people supervision. Infrared makes up more than half of the sun's radiation, yet it lies just beyond human vision. But now, by using cutting-edge nanotechnology, scientists have found a way to bring it into view. At the heart of this breakthrough, it is called what is being called up-conversion nanoparticles, or microscopic materials that absorb infrared and emit visible light in red, green or blue. The result? Contact lenses that reveal infrared signals alongside the visible world. This opens the door to wearable supervision, not just for seeing the invisible, but potentially helping those with color blindness too. In early tests, volunteers wearing the lens could read infrared Morse code and detect the direction of invisible light beams as well. Now, while some animals involved to see ultraviolet or thermal radiation, humans may now enhance their own abilities with science. No surgery required. While these lenses don't yet provide any kind of thermal vision, scientists say future versions could. For now, it looks like these lenses are a glimpse of what's coming, not just enhanced vision, but possibly a new way to experience the world around us. Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin was a controversial figure in his own right. And he has now returned to Moscow once again, this time in the metro line. Basically, a monument to Stalin has been unveiled at the Gansakaya station in the Moscow metro, a move that has split Russians. Our next report telling you more.
You know, the people who forget their past have no future.
Moscow clearly hasn't moved over Joseph Stalin, the influential Soviet dictator who has now made an unusual comeback in form of a monument, a life-size wall sculpture, if you will, which is turning heads at the central Taganskaya station. The statue depicting Stalin standing on Moscow's Red Square, surrounded by a crowd of Soviet citizens looking at him in supreme awe and admiration. It's almost as if history is being rewritten, but with a twist. The statue being a recreation of a monument, unveiled in the same station in 1950, just years before Stalin passed away. To some, Stalin remains a national hero, a man of steel who helped overturn Nazism, while to the others, he remains a controversial figure in the post-Soviet era.
A person should be judged not by his words, but by his deeds. That is why what he did for the country, a great victory, means a lot. That is why I think they did the right thing by installing.
It seems to me that this was some kind of quick order that needed to be implemented in the shortest possible time. In my opinion, such an order usually takes several months. From the beginning, from the idea, from how they agreed with the contractors, found these contractors, then agreed on some kind of sketch, agreed on the initial version.
Several Stalin monuments have been erected in several places, but perhaps none in the heart of Moscow, bearing a message of its own kind. However, according to Moscow Metro, it is simply a gift to the passengers, marking the 90th anniversary of its sprawling, ornate, and efficient transport system, also considered one of the most beautiful in the entire world.
It seems to me, by the way, that this will not be the only monument to Stalin. They will definitely unveil more. And this is right. You know, the people who forget their past have no future.
Many opine like there are two sides to a coin. History, too, must be open to interpretation, letting people decide for themselves what they choose to accept or decline. Bureau Report, WION.
With that, we slip into a very short break, but thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION World is One. Do stay tuned.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet, only on WION.
Putin announces security buffer zone on Russia-Ukraine border. A move aimed at suppressing enemy firing points.
I think buffer zones will be definitely a part of whatever final settlement is devised.
Talk of redrawing Ukraine's borders. As voices in the US step up heat for a ceasefire. Catch the latest updates on the Russia-Ukraine war on WION World is One.